Welcome to Power of X-Men, the podcast where we review every single issue of the revolutionary, groundbreaking, punk epic mutant masterpiece known as Morrison's New X-Men. I am the new Flinkman.
And I'm the uncanny Dayspring.
And today we have got some stuff to talk about.
I thought it was going to be a quiet weekend for X-Men news, and sort of me and you were going back and forth. Do we talk about the X-Manhunt trailer? Do we talk about casting rumors? But over the weekend, Chris Claremont had a couple of things to say about the X-Men, and it sort of rocked the internet.
I want to say mad respect to Chris Claremont. He is a legend and the reason that the X-Men are what they are today. So anything that I say is said with love and respect. But what is it that he said, Dayspring?
So Claremont was at CCXP over the weekend, and the headline reads from Popverse. Popverse is reporting on this, and they said that Marvel's X-Men and all mutants shouldn't be pigeonholed as minorities by us or them, according to veteran writer Chris Claremont. And I'll read the article really quickly here, just highlighting his comments. He goes into a lot of detail because Claremont is very verbose. But Claremont said, "The challenge is to see themselves at the school as minorities. That's Charlie's job. That's Magneto's job. For my perception, what they are is a half dozen, maybe a dozen kids, young people living together, but looking on themselves as ordinary people. They have abilities, yeah. The key is to think of them as people, not as heroes. Not, yes, I am a minority. No, you're a person who is trying to live a normal life. Other people may see you as a minority. You may react to them as a minority. You may look at yourself objectively as a minority, but as a person, you are a person." Wait, I didn't find you. I have like a million tabs open. I need to see your reaction, but go. There you are.
No, so I don't know. It's not like he's wrong. Of course the X-Men are people. I don't think anyone in this fandom views the X-Men as like just a group of minority characters. And not as individual characters. They are all fairly very individual characters, and it would be weird if somebody just viewed them as a cluster of minorities, but it is a huge part of their identity, and it's why they're the X-Men. It's why the X-Men exists. Mutants are hated and feared, and they're a minority that needs protecting, and this is a superhero team that, in addition to saving the world, is fighting for their very right to exist. And I'm not saying me being a queer man, I'm not saying that's my entire identity, but it is a big part of it. And especially in this era where the issue of being a minority or being different is highly politicized, I don't think anybody should downplay their minority status, and why would it be any different for these fictional mutants? I mean, yes, they are people, but they're a persecuted minority, and right now in this climate, persecuted minority groups need to stand up and be loud, make more noise than they ever have before, be more proud of who they are than ever before, celebrate what makes them different and wear it like a badge of honor. And just like, when Trump was reelected, the thing that I said was, well, I'm going to be gayer than ever. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be gay. I'm going to be out, proud, rainbows, trans pride, everything. And, just to be like, hey, we're not going anywhere. So while he's not wrong, I just think right now is a particularly weird time for him to be giving a lecture about how mutants shouldn't be pigeonholed as minorities.
Well, I don't think he's purposely trying to say something contentious in a political climate. I think Claremont is just, his motor is running. I think he is in his 70s, and he is just saying the first thing that comes to his mind. And I think, I don't think he's being strategic
No,
when we're saying this.
no,
That being said, though, these are things I don't think he has not said in the past. He has said
right.
similar things. Lobdell has said similar things to us, where it was like, yeah, the X-Men, the idea that when we were writing the X-Men in the 90s was that even superheroes could be persecuted for being different. They weren't a stand-in necessarily for minorities, but even superheroes are subjected to things like discrimination.
Yeah,
It's a really weird fine line, but I'm going to say this is why a writer like Morrison is so special. Because Morrison writes them as superheroes. Morrison understands the intrinsic meaning of what it means to be a minority, good, bad, political, or pop culture, and how that influences the
yeah,
world, and makes it really smart. They Morrison just nails that. So I agree with you. My ultimate qualm with it is that why are you saying this now? Like, this is
right,
not the time to say something like
right.
this now. But again, in defense of Claremont, I saw him behind the scenes. I'm seeing so many people saying mean things like "sit down, Grandpa," and I want to be like, Grandpa is an interesting word. Yes, he is older. Yes, I think it's clear there's something going on with him. I will say he's not a very nice guy either. You get two versions of Claremont. Either you get a really nice person who doesn't stop talking, or you get someone who's really snide at everything you
Yeah.
said. And I've met him a couple of times, and so it's anyone's guess if he's going to be good or bad.
Yeah,
You know?
I've gotten both sides of Claremont myself. So, and I don't think that he was saying this, to be as a political statement or to, raise any eyebrows. I don't think he was looking for controversy or thinking he was making a controversial statement. And it's at the heart of it, it's not really a controversial statement. But my initial reaction to is just why now? Why now is not the time to be making comments like this? And maybe that's just me being very sensitive in this climate that we're in. I don't know. Me sensitive?
I was going to say that. Oh my God, I was about to say that. I was going to be like, you sensitive? Never. Although, listen, I think you and I are so different 5 years later. I think we are so different 5 years later. I would not classify you as being overly sensitive. You're pretty tough.
I will. Thank you. I think some people in my life probably disagree with that assessment, but I just I don't want to disparage him. I don't want to call him out on his age. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't think the age thing is fair. Because I do think that is hitting below the belt. But I will say, I think the message is ultimately beautiful in that, because I was talking about this with War Lion over from Geekable, and he was talking about the Storm Gene relationship really had nothing to do with other than two humans seeing each other and forming this sisterly bond beyond, which at the time, of course, Storm being a woman of color, both of them being the female members of the team, Claremont really wanted to drive home the point that these are just two humans who've come together and they have this bond. That is, the ultimate goal is a world of equality, absolved of anyone looking at you for whatever reason. So I think it comes it comes from a good place. I just don't think it's delivered correctly, and I don't think it's the time to have this conversation. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I think he just stepped in it a little bit. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think that he is a bigot in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't want to, even hint at that with what I said. I just, with it being, the X-Men being a minority is so core to the team that it's just a strange thing to hear him say now of all times for him to get into that. And maybe, I don't know the context. Like, maybe somebody asked him. I don't. Somebody probably did ask him, but I would be curious what the actual question.
You're absolutely right, because let's not forget that Storm during Avengers, X-Men versus Eternals, Axe, whatever it was called. You had characters like Storm saying that, like, I'm not a human, I'm a mutant, and it is a conversation that if people are bringing that to you, maybe you want to, as a writer, like, make clear, like, oh, at the end of the day, we're all humans. Again, I agree with you. What was a question that sparked that conversation? Yeah. I was going to say something shady, but anyways.
Say it. I mean, come on. This is a safe space.
I think he probably Claremont realizes that no one's actually reading the X books or care about continuity, and so he has to, like, clarify some things, or just sounding off on something without actually knowing the context of it. Just my opinion.
I definitely agree with that. I think that a lot of fandom these days is very self-involved, and it's very unfortunate. I wish, more people would dive into this material like we do, and it's not a
I
necessity,
I
but
love it when someone like War Lion is one of our familia members. He's co-host of Geekable, and War Lion, when you come to him with something and he doesn't agree with you, he's got receipts. You know what I mean? He knows the interviews, he knows the context of the writing, and I love that. I may not agree, I may be like, oh shit, but I think that is always such a good thing. But anyways, so yeah, so that's what Claremont said over the weekend. Familia, let us know your feels. Send them to Flickman on Instagram because he loves getting everyone's
love.
feedback.
I love everyone's feedback. No, I really do. I really do appreciate people who have. If someone has legitimate feedback, please give it to
I
me.
love legitimate feedback.
If you're coming to troll, stay.
I don't like I don't like people who troll, who say wrong or say something that's so incorrect on something. I'm like, I like a good debate. I like meaty words, you know?
Yes, yes. Come to me with a well-formed thought about something, and we'll talk all day.
Okay, so I also posted one more news item before we get into this week's issue. I posted our new cover, which is Nate with new X-Men Emma Frost. So much love for it. Everyone loves Emma. Everyone's just like, look at that Emma face. I hope we are going to give pride to the new X-Men costume that she has. The gorgeous dapper diaper, whatever we want to call it.
I love it.
But I also put on stories. I asked for a poll about folks' feels on new X-Men, and we got really interesting feedback because I was thrown off by this because all I hear is that new X-Men is terrible, is so, 50-50. People are on it. They either hate it or love it, and we've, in the previous episode, said that too. But when I polled, our audience, I asked about like what are your feels on Grant Morrison? We're going to be covering it this season, and the options are yes, I loved it, nah, I hated it, or haven't read it. 20% haven't read it. Only 10% said I hate it, and 71% say they love it. What? What? No, like what has this 71% been?
That blows my mind because like you said, we only hear pretty much negative feedback about it. Like, and we've polled people, I think, on this before, and it's been very much the other way. I don't get it. But
I all we can think is that Rodrigo created such a beautiful cover for us that people are just like, yes, we love new X-Men. We love Emma. By the way, no one cared about Nate. No, I feel strongly that Nate should be a mascot of sorts for us because I love him very much. But no one gave a flying fuck about Nate. Everyone's comments were about Emma because, of course, it's Emma Grace Frost.
I mean, she is the undisputed, in my opinion, the undisputed star of new X-Men. So like, and she owes who she is now to new X-Men. So anybody who claims to be an Emma Frost fan now, if they don't like new X-Men, if they're not down with new X-Men, I don't know what like what.
We are in such a mood today. We're like, if you're an Emma Frost fan, then you have to like Grant. I agree with that though, because listen, you may be like, oh man, like Emma is such a cold-hearted bitch, right? You may just say a flat statement like that. However, when you read Morrison's Emma, as we will, she debuts in this issue, you cannot argue against that she's written with wit, with satire, with different levels. I'm sorry. Emma is, as far as she is a breakout star of new X-Men. And again,
for sure.
Scott Lobdell has said to us in the past, he's here like, well, fuck my drag. And like everyone thinks that Grant was the one who made Emma a hero, but I was the one writing Emma during Generation X. Yes, 100%. But the Emma we see in Generation X is very different than the Emma we get in New X-Men. And very different in Messiah Complex and Utopia. Yeah. Emma is very different. This Emma is written very specifically, and we love it. We here.
Love it. And shout out to Scott Lobdell. I mean, honestly, he doesn't get enough credit for the contributions. I don't think Emma would have been on the table for this at all had Generation X not happened. So, like, he deserves a lot of props for setting the groundwork for Emma to be able to get to where she is here.
And the only one thing I wanted to note, and I forgot to tell you that I was going to do this, I did pull sales figures from Comic Con.
I know sales figures.
I love sales figures because when we talk about that, like New X-Men saved the franchise, I think people need to understand where the X-Men were at, from a shipping perspective.
Yeah.
So New X-Men 114 shipped 144,000 copies. And 115, which we're going to discuss today, shipped 142,000 copies. So, by contrast, X-Men 113 only shipped 100K, and then Uncanny X-Men was 105K, and then Wolverine was 73K, and Amazing Spider-Man, flagship title, everything, was 77K. So Morrison's era, like, we're talking a significant sales boost. And we will see these numbers continue, and we'll touch in on like sales numbers here and there, but we will see these sales numbers continue all the way through to Here Comes Tomorrow.
Morrison ruined the franchise. Nobody liked it.
Saved the franchise. Saved X-Men. Literally.
Absolutely.
Anyways, so I just wanted to bring up those sales figures. I feel strong.
I love facts and figures. Like, you can't facts. Well, in this day and age, you can't. People love to argue with facts, but
you can't argue with money. You can't argue with money. How about that? And that is money.
Yes.
You can't argue with money. Anyway, so today
we are discussing New X-Men number 115 from August 2001. It is the second part of 3 of E is for Extinction, and obviously Grant Morrison wrote it, and Frank Quitely has returned for the art, thank God. And when we open, we pick up kind of where we left off. We left off in the jungle with Cassandra Nova and Donald Trask discovering the Master Mold, and the opening to this issue is a shot of them on a levitating platform in front of a giant Master Mold head. Trask has a good line here. When I got on my bed this morning, I didn't expect to exterminate 15 million people. Well, I don't think a whole lot of people do get out of bed thinking they're going to do that day.
That's some coffee, man. Like, who needs coffee when you're going to exterminate like an entire species? This shot is so beautiful. Oh my God. And I also want to give a shout out to the colorist. I think it's Tim Townsend. No, that's inks. High definition colors by Mark Morales. I can't see them. Comic Aft, something like that. Listen, whoever did the colors for this issue, I want to give them flowers because it is stunning. It absolutely is stunning. And, I think right now, if you're reading this in real time and you don't know what's going on, you're like, where are they sending? Are they going to like exterminate? And it is a little misleading. Are these Sentinels going to go around the globe and start killing mutants?
Right. And you already said it. This establishing shot of Nova and Trask, it's beautiful. I mean, in its detailed simplicity, like the head takes up the whole frame, and it just has like this really cool play on like light and shadows, with most of the face like obscured by darkness, but then it has all of like the super detailed mech at the top. This is the kind of opening splash that I love.
And I am not foolish enough to skip over the art in the second page, which is all of the new X-Men team posing and their names underneath, as I did last week with that establishing Quitely shot. This is iconic new X-Men. This is when we were seeing the art coming in for the first time in Wizard magazine. This is a shot, albeit not as colored, but this was a shot that ran in that Wizard magazine issue that was showing us what we were going to be getting out of new X-Men. And it's Jean, Cyclops, Xavier, Emma, Beast, and Wolverine.
And it's the first appearance of the sexy diaper.
I called it the Dapper Diaper earlier.
The Dapper Diaper is really good.
I mean, because Emma's like fashion, right? It's gonna be like she's a female, like Oscar Wilde, just very elaborate with the fashion and everything. So she would be dapper. She would want to be a little dapper like queen. Okay, so the X-Wing is coming into Ecuador and they're being attacked by the Wild Sentinels. They're seeing them launch. The Wild Sentinels are launching from the Master Mold. And Ugly John is coming to, and he's here like 1 minute. 1 minute, I'm following through into my Calvins under a giant robot Sentinel hand in Sydney Harbor. Then I'm in space. Does he mean that he was shitting himself? Is that what he said? Okay. I'm sorry. I'm dumb and pretty. So I'm like, wait, what do you mean you're following through with Calvin? I'm like, I don't get it. He's shitting his Calvin Kleins. I get it now.
Yep.
Poor Ugly John. And Wolverine says, go back to bed. Ugly John did something, just hit us. And the next page is basically the Wild Sentinels attacking the X-Wing and Ugly John just being like, why are we here? Why are we going into this like Master Mold factory? And Cyclops being like, listen, we have to investigate what's happening, and the X-Wing's engine 3 goes off, and they crash land into the Master Mold.
Yeah, and so they have their little crash landing, and they're covered in the X-Wing is covered in these little Wild Sentinels who are still really small and don't look like a huge threat at this time, and they set the self-destruct. Wolverine makes some funny comments about, how much this would have cost, this brand new jet that they're blowing up, but Cyclops, says we can't let them have these spare parts. So they set the auto-destruct, and then they parachute out into the jungles of Ecuador.
I love the line where Wolverine is saying, like, my God, how much is Chuck's like spending on this equipment? And Cyclops is like relax, like insurance covers everything. I know that's such a little nuanced line, but like it's something that when I'm looking at like the current X books and you have people who are occupying the mansion, I'm like, how did they get into the mansion? Like, right. That's either Warren, Emma, or Charles owns the mansion. Like, can you please explain how they were able to convert this into, like, just a little line like that? So having something like this of being like, yeah, we're crashing brand new X-Wing, it's okay. The insurance got it. But Wolverine also calls him like Scott Summers, and he gives such a really great read of him. He's like, you know what I like most about you, Summers? Your icy, calm lunacy under pressure. And then Cyclops just looks back at him and is like, call me Cyclops during missions, Wolverine. It keeps things straight. Oh!
The sass between them is that's next level. This is the kind of relationship that we want Cyclops and Wolverine having, not outright antagonistic of one another, just those little subtle jabs. So we get the page of them evacuating the X-Jet and it exploding. It is a dialogue-free page, which sometimes can feel like a jip, but here it doesn't at all. We get all of the information that we need. I'm a big fan of obviously this sets up sort of, we do have a fully silent issue later in this run. So this just goes to sort of, sets the stage for that. So they are, now they're on the ground, or rather in the water. And they start, the Wild Sentinels start attacking them. This is the first time that we really see that these Sentinels they mean business. I mean, they've got Wolverine down pretty quickly, bleeding. They knock Cyclops for a loop. It seemingly shatters his ruby quartz visor. Wolverine, does his best to hack and slash, but these Sentinels, they just keep coming.
I have to tell you something. God, again, this is like just so crass. Wolverine looks so sexy. Like when he's coming out of the water holding the Wild Sentinel head, and he's here like, you ever see anything look like this? And I'm just like, damn, like quietly is giving us stuff to eat with this panel, because Wolverine's coming out. He has no shirt underneath. He just has his leather jacket, and he's holding the Wild Sentinel head, and his head is like back like this, like such a cocky, arrogant, and even their size difference, right? Wolverine is shorter than Cyclops. The way it's rendered there, Wolverine is like a short king. Poor Ugly John is like, I got 3 faces, mate, and they all look like pigs after Wolverine's like, Ugly John, are you useful at all? And you're like, I'm just ugly. I have 3 faces that look like pigs.
And then he
Which,
gets his kneecap blown off.
oh, Ugly John. I'm like, so do you just have, I guess he only has one throat. So we can assume he has one stomach, one everything, but he just has 3 noses, 3 mouths, and 3 eyes. And poor Ugly John.
Poor Ugly John.
But yeah, I mean, like, Cyclops is blown out, his visor is shattered, and the Wild Sentinels, as you said, get him. Then back at the mansion, Beast is writing a letter to Trish, and he's mentioning that, like, hey, I really enjoyed seeing your documentary, The War in Genosha, which I guess that's a homage to Eve of Destruction. Talking about it, he was like, congratulations on that. But he's like sort of getting frustrated as he's writing this, and he notices that there's something going on, and he gets up and he goes to check it out.
Yeah, and then we jump over to the infirmary where Jean is attending to Professor X, who is, of course, still recovering from his mind being violently intruded upon by the mystery villain in the last issue. And, she asks him about the gun, which, he explains, my brain is a lethal weapon. If some enemy were to hijack it, I have to be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice if need be, or the ultimate gamble, which makes a lot of sense to me. But he of course, Charlie X being Charlie X wants to get out of bed and go back to Cerebra to identify the new mutant before it causes any more damage. And he literally yells to Jean, "Fetch my chair." And she says, that tone of voice might work with Scott, but not with me.
Oh, it's such it establishes them as contemporaries, right?
Yes.
And like Jean calls him Charles, and I love that. I mean, everyone will call him Professor X, but Jean and Xavier are on the same level. I love that so much. And that scene where that moment where he tells Jean, "Fetch my chair," and she's like, "That tone doesn't work on me," what you just said. Beast walks in and he's here like, "Hey, the X-Wing went off radar and I can't contact Scott and Logan." And then Xavier's like, "Then that means Cerebra is our only hope of contacting them. Henry, fetch my chair."
Right. Because Beast is going to be his little butt boy and do whatever the good prof says. But,
so well written. So this is the beauty of Morrison.
It really establishes the dynamic. Like, yes, Cyclops, Jean, Xavier, Beast, these are the original X-Men. These are his original students. But just in 2 panels, it gives, Morrison gives us this very subtle look at how the dynamics between them are all very different. And I love that. And something else I love on this page is, Frank Quitely may not be like the most bombastic comic book artist out there, but his work is filled with little details, like Jean using her telekinesis.
I had that in my notes. Yes, yes.
She gets a wet rag for Xavier. We see her pink TK effect turning off the sink, wringing out the excess water, and then levitating the rag over to her. And I just think that's so cool. Like, not everything needs to be a spectacle every time someone uses their powers. And I almost wonder if that was like even in Morrison's script, because if it was, I feel like a different, more traditional comic book artist would have made that the focus of the scene rather than just a detail that enhances it.
You took whatever I felt about that little detail, you encapsulated it so well.
I'm really curious. I would love to see the script and know if that was actually scripted or like it just. Either way, if he added that detail, it's genius, and if he chose to downplay it, that's also. Either way, it's genius. I love it.
So we go back to Donald Trask the third, and Miss Nova, and this is the first time we get some kind of name for Cassandra. When he's here, like, is it evil Miss Nova? What I've just done, some people would call evil, wouldn't they? And she's here like, were the doctors who wiped out the entire smallpox epidemic evil? In a world without values or morality, good and evil are just choices on the menu of the mighty Mr. Trask. Cassandra is sort of taking the stance that mutants are an invasive species. They are like the smallpox plague, good, evil. This is irrelevant. We are wiping them out. This is just. I believe the line does come up in this issue where all evolutionary says is that we become manure in the end.
Something on this page that I really picked up on, and I both love and hate it. It's Cassandra's line about people wearing a mask of liberal respectability. The exact quote is, "Behind the mask of liberal respectability with its safe opinions, we all hate the mutations, don't we?" And the reason that I love it is because Morrison's commentary about humanity here is so true and, like, frankly, ahead of its time. But I also hate it because we now live in a world where those masks are almost completely gone. You know, people are emboldened and encouraged by the rhetoric of the current administration, which oddly enough, a different Donald Trump than the one that is featured here. But obviously that's getting off track. But it's just that people aren't wearing those masks of respectabilities anymore. We have billionaires are doing Nazi salutes on live television in front of millions of people, and the president is blaming airplane crashes on diversity policies and disabled people. And, you know, we said it the last episode, this story was pre 9/11, which was kind of the start of, like, really radicalizing people in the current generations and pushing things like Islamophobia and conspiracy theories into the mainstream consciousness. And, you know, that's not to say that we had defeated any of those things pre 9/11, but at least from my young perspective, it was kind of like more behind closed doors, whereas people are more open with their bigotry now. So just that one itty bitty line to me, I took so much from it. It has so much weight to me almost 25 years later, because it's just a very astute observation about how people were behaving at the time. We at least pretended that we weren't horrible people.
For me, though, what is the best part of that line is a follow-up where she says, "How can it be murder when they're germs or vermin?" And this goes to show you that Cassandra is that evil. I mean, she does not even see mutants as any sort of living being, creature, human or otherwise. They're just germs or vermin. And I agree with everything you just said. And I think it's to elucidate how evil and manipulative Cassandra Nova is. Cassandra Nova could run for office in today's world and would get votes.
Absolutely. And that's terrifying.
But Mr. Donald Trask here, Cassandra says, "I'd know it even if I couldn't read your mind like a t-shirt. I even know you dream of keeping mutant women and children as slaves in your basement." And this is why Donald Trask III is participating in this, because yes, he woke up a dentist and now he's going to be the world's greatest murderer, is because deep down inside he wants slaves, mutant slaves in his basement. Oh, poor Donald. You're not as innocent as you like to believe. You're not this lowly Albuquerque dentist. You were built for genocide. How disgusting.
And I feel like that's just such astute commentary on humanity. We may not have seen at the time that, you know, everybody has such darkness in them, but like we certainly see it now.
Yeah.
And going to the next page, we have the now famous Cassandra Nova fingers.
Yes.
one of my favorite parts of Deadpool and Wolverine was, of course, Emma Corrin's creepy long fingers rummaging through Paradox's face, almost exactly like the panel that we're seeing here. So anybody saying that this book hasn't had any bearing on the mutant franchise outside of this can kiss my ass, because this was completely recreated in a billion-dollar blockbuster just this past summer. So anyways, yeah, she's done with them. She's done with them. So it's taken her the 10 hours in the helicopter ride to read and copy the 3 billion base letters in his DNA sequence. So now the Sentinels recognize her as a Trask. She doesn't need him. She puts her fingers in his face, kills him, and is ready to make some more chaos. And again, I also want to give another shout out to Quitely's design and detail work on this page. This spider-legged sentinel in the bottom here,
I
chains
know,
and hooks and the barbed wire hanging from it. I think we did actually see it a few pages earlier, and I think it's presumably what took Logan out, because I think he was fighting it. But I just love the look of it, and it really conveys like a genuine feeling that these sentinels really, there's barbed wire hanging from it. So it like conveys that these sentinels really just used what they had on hand, and it makes you believe that they are as dangerously adaptive as she has said they are.
and her line that I paraphrased earlier, but I just want the familia to have it. Cassandra Nova, as she is killing Donald, says, Do you want to know the real message of evolution? All life winds up as manure. Oh,
She's not wrong.
I mean, yes. It's like this weekend we went to go buy a new TV because our TV just broke, and they were just like, "Oh, you better get this one now before the new model comes." And I was just like, "What?" Like, and all I could think of is like, man, we're just buying TVs that the second we buy them, they become outdated, and you throw them out into the garbage, and that's what evolution is. Here's the next best thing.
Yep.
All previous thing gets wiped out. So it's a really interesting take. And again, I think Morrison, they had such a good grasp on the themes of the X-Men, apart from just what it means to be a mutant in society, but also a mutant on the evolutionary ladder. So wonderful. Wonderful. So this was the next scene that I got a little confused, because Cassandra has like a bunch of TVs, and they're talking about how in the south of in Cape Town in South Africa, Sentinels are attacking mutants, and they're causing destruction. I was kind of like, well, what is this in reference to? I didn't quite get it. It took me a while to understand that they were probably the Sentinels are traveling to Genosha,
Yes.
and along their way they're killing things. But I was just like, oh, that's weird. I just want to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then comes the greatest line of this issue, in which Cassandra looks at Ugly John, and she's talking about mutants being a menace, and she goes, "Menaces like you. Am I really to believe you're from Charles Xavier's School for the Gifted? What are you, the X mascot?" The fucking burn. Burn. She is so, and then she injects herself with the Trask DNA, because now she's going to be able to command them to kill poor Ugly John. She commands them to kill the piggy, of which Ugly John is that.
And again, we have the news reports here talking about monstrous things of glass and steel and fire, but we still haven't seen them. We still can't believe it's really that bad. And yeah, like you said, poor Ugly John. He spends his last moments on Earth being read to filth by Cassandra Nova, and that's oof.
I mean, listen, if you're going to go out being killed in the X-Men universe, at least being shaded by Cassandra Nova, I mean, that ranks up there. I feel terrible. No one will ever mention Ugly John again. Ugly John will not get resurrected on Krakoa. Even when they're talking about the mutants who died on Genosha, no one's like, oh, what about that guy who died on the mission before? No one. Sorry, Ugly John. And like, I'm sure he has one of those situations where like they lost his cerebral backups. like Ugly John just looks like he has the best luck out there. And I feel bad for him, because for all intents and purposes, he is a cultural sample of mutants who aren't X-Men, who are not superheroes. He's just an everyday person with a mutation. He got caught up with the X-Men, and now he's being murdered by Cassandra Nova. And his death wakes up Wolverine, who says, bacon.
Which is gross. I mean, it's funny, but also like we've been calling. She just called him terminate. She said terminate Piggy, and it fries him. And the first thing Wolverine can say is bacon. Like, come on, Logan, have a little tact.
And he jumps out, he grabs Cassandra Nova, he goes, his claws come out 130 miles per hour, babe. I love that he calls her babe. And he's like, so you better relax. And Cyclops comes in, and Wolverine's like, hey, this guy's dying in agony. And so Cyclops is going to euthanize him. And he gets his name wrong. He's like, John, Steve, whatever your name is, I'm so sorry. I know there's more than just this world. Deep breath. Don't be scared. Just look into my eyes. I thought that scene kind of humorous, but also very tender. It's such, again, so much happening in that. I'm curious how you read that.
No, I took it the same way you did. It's some black humor for sure. It would be nice if it just the X-Men don't have time to care about every individual mutant as much as we would want them to, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not shocking that Ugly John said, my mates call me Ugly John, but of course he didn't say whether or not he approved of that. He probably would have preferred his old name, his real name. So my question to you is, do you think pre-apocalypse possession that Cyclops might have tried to save Ugly John?
I love that you said that. I agree with you because I'm like, he knows there's something more because of his possession of Apocalypse, and so that's why he's willing to grant that mercy on him. Could it be a byproduct of if before he would have just been the team leader and saved him, or is this the influence of Apocalypse being like survival of the fittest? Ugly John is dying. There's no saving him. Kill him. And that's more of an act of mercy. It's more of an act of mercy and contrition to euthanize him than let him slowly die in pain. I don't know. It's a wonderful question. It's posed here, but I definitely agree with you. I think pre the 12, Cyclops would have tried to have saved him. Cyclops would have rather him die on the X-Wing back to the mansion than euthanize him.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, it's indicative of a Cyclops who is less of an optimist, who sort of now understands better how fucked everything really is. It's a good scene. I like it quite a bit. So we move on. Cyclops has done the deed. He's, talking a little smack to Cassandra, and he removes his emergency ruby quartz contacts, which I don't think we've ever seen before.
We've never seen, but I don't understand how they're supposed to work, though.
I don't think we're supposed to question
it. Because if he has the contacts in, then in theory he can't use his powers, right? So they're emergency. So like, I guess he kills Ugly. He took them off. He must have put them on after the crash. He puts them on. Sorry. Puts them on, and then he removes them to kill Ugly John, and then I guess that's how it goes, right?
I guess.
Okay, anyways, continue. His emergency contacts, which he's never had, which is brilliant. By the way, contacts were such a big conversation in the early aughts because like they had finally they transitioned from the hard contacts to a soft one, so now everyone was getting contacts. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I get it. So yeah, he's threatening her, but she's laughing. She's having a good time. She's smiling. She's giggling. Wolverine is, asking what else did this psycho do that she thinks is so funny? Where did she send those sentinels? And of course, the very next page, we get our answer as to where they're going, and it is also our first look. Frost in the series, and holy shit, she is magnificent. She is just please.
I'm speechless. Everything you need to know about Emma Grace Frost in this run is in this page. Can we read these lines? Because I think you need the beauty of it. Emma walks into her class and she's like, "Good morning, class. I have radioactive dog dirt on my shoes. There are luminous bird droppings on the statue of our beloved President Magneto. Therefore, we shall not be singing the words to Genosha, Genosha, Promise Island, Mutant Utopia this morning with your usual tuneless gusto or otherwise. Instead, I propose we spend today's telepathy period hacking into the minds of our favorite screen idols. A gold star to the first girl who discovers the awful truth about Tom and Nicole, dot, dot, dot." Brilliant! Brilliant writing.
It is just dripping with wit and snark, and it's just I said it earlier, but this is just really successfully building off of what came before in Generation X, where we were getting a little bit of that black humor that she has, and it just really, like you said, this one panel really sets up what would become the character defining version of Emma. And in addition to Emma, two things to note about this class. Of course, we know it can't be Dust, but there is a burqa-wearing female in the class that sort of telegraphs the sort of diversity that Morrison is going for with this series. But more importantly, in terms of expanded X-Men media, we have the first appearance of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who, of course, was bastardized. Pardon me. I mean, unfaithfully adapted for the Deadpool film series, simply because Ryan Reynolds thought the name was cool, and of course it is. She resembles this character in absolutely no way. She has a warning from Miss Frost and the class. You think everything's just a joke, but I had the same nightmare 50 times last night, and I'm having it again right now. Everybody's going to die, and then what happens?
So the Wild Sentinel flies directly to Magneto's Citadel and crashes right into it. And we just get one little panel of Magneto in his wheelchair, because this is following the events of Eve of Destruction, where Wolverine stabs him in the stomach. And Magneto dies right there. It explodes the Citadel, and the Wild Sentinel attacks Genosha. And by the way, Familia at home, you'll notice that in X-Men 97, they expanded on what was happening on the ground. This is a blink moment in the story. The Sentinel attacks and wipes out everyone within 3 pages, 2 panels. And the last shot is extermination event underway, the caption reads, and it's a Wild Sentinel obliterating Genosha, and it pans out to Xavier seeing it, and the population goes from 11 million to 8, all the way down to 763. And Xavier says, "All those lights gone. No one saw it coming. They were making love, drinking tea." Oh.
Yeah, and Xavier's line there is super iconic.
Yeah.
Which they adapted for X-Men 97. It's not identical. In X-Men 97's, he says they were dancing, drinking wine, making love. Here he says drinking tea, making love. Either way, it's a very powerful line. It just goes to show these people had no idea that this was coming. They're just being slaughtered where they stand, doing whatever it is that they're doing. And you kind of alluded to it, but I think it's super smart that we only get this one partial splash of the violence and destruction before zooming out and focusing on the dwindling population numbers. It just makes it feel, we don't. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would have wanted to see that violence a little bit more and just to see it, but I personally think it's a lot more powerful the way that it's done here, just zooming out and getting the widescreen shot of the X-Men reacting. Jean and Beast are there holding their faces. They're horribly upset. Xavier's crying. I don't know. For some reason, it makes it...
It's more horrifying what your imagination brings to the table here. And again, this is... I was about to say this is a it's pre 9/11. My goodness, but yeah, it's a plane. The Wild Sentinel here is depicted as a plane that's coming at them, and it just hits the Citadel and it explodes. I mean, it's so horrific and yet such a simple action that happens. The plane just flies into the building and it explodes, and then the Sentinel is incinerating. It is just true real terrorism and horror that's being rendered here. These are not superheroes in a bombastic fight. Yeah. This is real life. Yeah, this is how it goes down in real life. Villain. Yeah.
This isn't a supervillain doing something over the top and ridiculous that we could never imagine happening. This is, I mean, obviously I can't imagine a giant robot walking down my street and stepping on my house, but either way, it's presented in a way from a ground level perspective, from an emotional perspective. It's not just this super unbelievable thing. It's very, I don't know. The way that they did it's so smart.
This is July. This is July 2001.
Yep.
9/11 is only 3 months away, 3 months away. Like, it is insane that this happened. Can you remind me, did Morrison ever comment on the similarities? I feel like they did in some kind of Wizard I'm going to have to check the Wizard.
I don't remember. Yeah, we'll have to.
I'm going to look into my archives there, because I would be curious as to what Marvel said about what happened here. But damn, and you know what's always been so horrifying? The shot where in the GENOSHA Times Square, I think it's called Magda Square. I forget what it's called, but the Wild Sentinel shooting down. There's a man holding his baby, and in the next issue, we'll pick up with a skeleton holding a baby behind Hank. That's the attention to detail that Quitely was bringing. So when people complain, "Ooh, Quitely's art is ugly," you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You don't have to like the cosmetic or the aestheticness of the art, but there is so much kinetic and detail going on here.
Yeah.
A 10 out of 10. I'm sorry. Oh,
once again, it was hard for me to just not keep reading. I'm trying to keep it, each individual issue fresh for right before we hop on to discuss it. The momentum that this has for me is just unlike any monthly comic experience. Well, that's a lie. Well, Messiah Complex is a whole different. That's a whole different.
Yeah.
So far as like a not huge mega crossover, I don't think I've ever felt the pull of a monthly comic as much as I do here. I want to know what is going to happen next so bad. And I was very fortunate that I did. I read this particular arc in a collected edition. So I did
in a trade paperback. Yeah.
But I imagine, can you imagine reading this monthly? Like my stomach would be in knots.
I agree.
What the fuck is happening?
I too read it because, again, I came in later on. I came during Riot, and I quickly went out and got like the trades. I still have those original trades with the Morrison Manifesto, which we will discuss the Morrison Manifesto in great detail in next week's episode. But I was like, holy shit. It's just, the writing is so good. The art is so great. And I don't know what else to say. It is a smart X-Men read. That's it. This is all we're going to be discussing for the next few months. It is just great. This issue for me just set up so much tension, and it does so much without being bombastic and over the top. It's just simple in its delivery. It's modern. I still think, as we discussed, still modern for the times. So it's still applicable in today's world. Yeah. And that shot of the Sentinel over Genosha, that obviously was also used in X-Men 97. So right here, this issue influenced two major things that have happened in the X-Men in 2024, Deadpool and Wolverine, and X-Men 97. So people were like, Morrison was terrible. Morrison's not relevant. Tanked the franchise, I believe someone said. No, it did not. People are still drying from this run, and we will continue seeing the influences as we go on from issue to issue. Sorry. Sorry. I'm like ranting here.
Go on, rant, rave, go on. This was an incredible issue. Yeah, I would give it a 10 out of 10 as well. I will say I felt the decompression here a little bit more. I did feel it was firmly felt middle chapter. But that's not a knock against it. All comic books have gone the way of being more decompressed storytelling. And most of them don't even come close to as successful as Morrison and Quitely were here. But I did feel that a little bit more.
So yeah, that's this week's issue of New X-Men. I don't know, I'm speechless. New X-Men 115. Hopefully you're reading along with us, Familia. If not, go read issues 114 and 115. We're going to be discussing part 3, the final act of E is for Extinction, and that'll be New X-Men 116 with Emma Frost in the dapper diaper.
The cover for 116 is one of my all-time favorite comic book covers in existence. It gets a lot of hate. People are like, why is she squinty? Why is she wearing a diaper? Her outfit defies gravity. I don't give a fuck.
Defying gravity. Sorry. I can't sing. I can't pull off the notes that
please
Cynthia
don't.
does.
Please don't. No, I mean, so if I really like you said, speechless. There's so many things that I want to say about this issue, but I feel like there's nothing that really, that you can say. It is groundbreaking. It is beautiful. It is smart. It is witty, funny, inappropriately so. It is everything that I would want, not just out of a comic book, but out of media in general. This isn't just good for a comic book. This is good, smart writing, period. Even without the visuals, if Morrison had fleshed this out into a novel, it would still be incredible. And I just have to give them so many props for taking these risks and pushing this franchise and these characters in a direction that nobody could have ever seen coming. Nobody ever, wants to see genocide of 15 million mutants. But you can't, it's just undeniable the impact and the importance this story has had on the mutant books ever since. We're going on 25 years, and the impact of this is still just as strong as it ever was.
And one thing I wanted to note, and I was looking online, was that when we got that X-Men specific wave, with Jim Lee and Extreme Gambit and Yellow Wolverine, we also get a Morrison New X-Men Wolverine, which comes with a Wild Sentinel accessory. And I mean, listen, these Wild Sentinels, I'm sorry we've never seen them again. I don't think we see Sentinels like this ever again. They're horrifying. Well, maybe here and there.
We saw one got brought back. One of these Sentinels was reactivated on Genosha in Astonishing, I think.
Right? Oh, yeah. The tall ones. Yeah, I'm sorry. Wait. Let me rephrase it. The little insect ones. Yeah. The three-headed Sentinel we would see later, on Genosha. But I think that's final, those little small ones that are insects is the final time we see, the first and final time. I think readers should note that Morrison purposely wanted Magneto's death to be that nonchalant, and that will play in for later on.
There's a reason for it.
There's a reason why Magneto is gone in one panel, and I believe Morrison was very intentional about that. So we don't worry. Do not worry. Magneto is not gone for long here. Anyways.
His presence, Magneto's presence is felt strongly throughout this series, whether he is physically in it or not.
Right. All right. Well, I have nothing else to say. It was perfect. Go check it out, Familia. Thank you for joining us on this journey, as it's going to be Dayspring and Flinkman defend New X-Men. That's it. That's all we're going to be doing. This is. I'm dying to get to an issue that we don't like. I'm curious that now with 25 years away from it, if we're going to hit an issue later on that we're going to be like, oh yeah, this is kind of like a weakling. But because my memory of New X-Men, every issue is perfect.
Every issue has merit.
Yeah, that's fair. I think merit is a great way of saying that.
There's a particular arc in New X-Men that I don't love. But that's not to say I don't like it. That's not to say it's not important. That's not to say it's not well written or beautiful. It's just, to me, it doesn't quite meet the rest of it, and I will reveal that when we get to it.
Oh, I can't wait. I don't even know that. I think I may have some inklings on which one it is, but I don't want to know. But
I mean, I think you should say for the record so that we can say.
Okay. For the record, I think Assault on Weapons Plus.
That's a choice. We'll find out. To be continued.
Amelia, I'm the Uncanny Dayspring. You can hit me up at Power of X-Men.
I am the new Flinkman, and you can catch me at Flinkman on Instagram.
Send him all of your feels. I'm getting notifications. Every time you post something, I get the notifications of someone replied to you. And they're trolling comments. I'm like, Flink is going to go at it.
Yeah, I left a particularly bitchy comment in response to somebody yesterday that I did actually go back and delete because I was like, that's just mean. I need to be better.
The thing is, we're plugged into our phones 24/7. I'm terminally online. I doom scroll. I have everything. I'm always like this, and you get caught in certain moments where you're stuck in traffic or frustrated, and then you see a little angry comment come in, and even though you're angry about traffic, you're like, I'm gonna let me tell you something. I've had to learn to put the phone down. I've had to learn not to reply. Greg doesn't love you. That's like,
oh god. I need to
that
get
is
myself together.
Anyways, all right, Familia. We'll see you next week.
Next week.